The rain fell hard on the ruined city. Smoke rose from broken towers. Fires burned in the distance. Every building looked dead, like bones after a battle. Cain moved through the shadows without sound. His armor was black, made to blend into the night. His eyes glowed red under the helmet, scanning for heat, movement, anything alive. He was not a man. He was a weapon. Cain had no past, no feelings, no fear. He was trained to follow orders and kill with no mercy. He had done this many times before. This mission was simple. Enter the war zone, locate the alien rebel leader, and eliminate her. No noise, no mistakes, no one left alive. He moved through the rubble like a ghost. His boots made no sound. His body, enhanced with machines and drugs, felt no pain. His brain was half computer, wired for war. He reached the outskirts of the alien settlement. The buildings here were older, made of stone and glass. Some had holes from bombs. Others had alien symbols carved into the walls. Cain spotted a patrol of 3 alien fighters walking down a broken street. They wore silver armor and carried plasma rifles. He watched them for 3 seconds. Then he moved. In less than 10 seconds, they were all dead. 1 shot to the head, 1 knife to the throat, 1 crushed by his bare hands. Silent, fast, clean. He dragged the bodies into a dark room and vanished into the smoke again. From the corner of his helmet, a voice came through the comm. "Status," the commander asked. "Target area reached," Cain said. "Proceed." "No witnesses." Cain didn't reply. He already knew what to do. He passed a shattered bridge and moved toward the main square. His scanner showed signs of life ahead. Heartbeats. Weak, slow, maybe wounded. He raised his rifle and moved closer. Every step was measured. Every breath was calm. Then he saw her. She was small, maybe 13, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Her hair was long and braided. She wasn't a soldier. She was a child. She knelt beside a dying alien man, pressing cloth to his wound. Behind her, 3 other aliens, 1 old, 2 young, lay under a broken roof. None of them were armed. Cain lifted his rifle. The girl looked up. Their eyes met. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She stared at him like she knew him. Cain's finger touched the trigger. His mind froze. A flash of memory struck him. A burning house. A screaming child. A small hand grabbing his. Her face. Not alien. Not exactly. But familiar. Like something lost long ago. He blinked. The memory vanished. His hand trembled slightly. "Cain, report," the commander said in his ear. He didn't answer. The girl slowly stood up. She stepped in front of the wounded man, blocking him from the gun. Cain's mind raced. This wasn't part of the mission. He was not supposed to feel anything. But something deep inside him moved. It felt like guilt, or fear, or memory. He lowered the rifle. The commander's voice came again, louder. "Target in sight." Cain took a breath. Negative. Civilian interference. There was silence on the other end. Then a cold reply. "Eliminate them all." No witnesses. Cain looked at the girl again. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just stood there, shaking, but strong. Her eyes were wide, full of something he had never seen before. Hope. His grip tightened on the gun. His heart beat faster. Something inside him broke free. Something buried by years of training, by injections, by lies. He remembered being human. He remembered having a sister, a home, a name. The girl blinked slowly. Her hand reached out a little, not to touch, but to show trust. Cain didn't understand why. He didn't deserve it. He had killed so many like her. He was built to destroy. But she stood there, like she believed he wouldn't hurt her. The voice in his ear came again, angry now. "Cain, do you copy? Execute the order. Kill them all." His body was shaking now. His gun pointed toward the ground. Behind him, the sound of approaching soldiers echoed in the alley. Reinforcements. His own team. They were close. He looked one last time at the girl. She whispered something in her language. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Please don't kill us. Kane turned around slowly. He faced the direction of his team. He raised his gun, but now it was pointed at his own. For the first time in his life, he made his own choice. The wind howled through the broken streets as Kane stood still, facing the alley where his team was closing in. The little alien girl stood behind him, confused but unafraid. He had just done the unthinkable, disobeyed a direct kill order. No soldier had ever done that. Not from his unit, not from his program. He heard the boots first. 3 soldiers, trained like him, deadly like him, coming fast. Their signals lit up in his visor. Red, friendly units, but they didn't feel like allies anymore. His hand clenched the rifle. Then he saw them. Black armor, red visors, moving in perfect sync, just like he used to. They spotted him and stopped. Unit 47 Kane, the lead soldier said through the comm. Why are the targets still alive? Kane said nothing. You are in breach of command protocol. Stand down. We will complete the mission. Kane didn't move. His body wanted to obey. His programming told him to move aside. Let them kill the girl and the others. But something inside him pushed back. The lead soldier took a step forward. This is your final warning. Step away from the civilians. Kane slowly raised his rifle. The soldiers reacted instantly. Weapons locked on him. One moved left, one flanked right. Classic formation. He knew their moves before they made them. Kane didn't want to fight them, but he had to. The first shot came from the left. Kane ducked, rolled, and returned fire. His bullet hit the shooter's neck, breaking the armor. Sparks flew. The soldier dropped. The second came from the front, swinging a blade. Kane blocked it with his forearm, then drove his elbow into the attacker's face. The helmet cracked. Blood sprayed. The third was behind him now, trying to shoot. Kane twisted, grabbed a broken metal pipe from the ground, and threw it like a spear. It hit the soldier in the chest. He fell back, gasping. Silence returned. 3 trained killers, down in less than a minute. The little girl stared at him with wide eyes. The other wounded aliens watched in fear. They didn't know if he was saving them or hunting them. Kane turned to them. We need to move. Now. The girl didn't speak his language, but she understood his tone. She helped the old alien man up. The others followed. Kane led them through the ruins, away from the blood and smoke. His comm still buzzed in his ear, but he shut it off. He had just become the enemy. As they moved through the shadows, Kane kept his rifle ready. He scanned the area constantly. His mind was racing. Why had he done this? What had changed? He remembered the flash, the memory of fire, the screaming child. It wasn't just a glitch. It was real, something they had buried in him. A part of his past, a part of who he was before he became a weapon. They found a small shelter behind an old alien market. The roof was broken, but it was dry and hidden. Kane scanned the area and set traps around the entrance. He placed his rifle beside him and looked at the girl. She sat beside the old man, helping him drink water. Her hands were small and careful. Her face was tired but strong. He walked over slowly and sat near her. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him, confused. He pointed to himself. "Kane," then pointed to her. She paused, then spoke softly. "Elira." Her voice was gentle. He had never heard an alien speak like that. They were always targets to him, never people. But now, everything felt different. He tried to rest, but the guilt crawled into his mind. The things he had done, the missions, the lives he ended. And now, he was sitting with the same people he was trained to destroy. Why did he feel safe? Outside, the night grew cold. Distant gunfire echoed from another part of the city. The war hadn't stopped. It would never stop. But something inside Kane had shifted forever. For the first time in his life, he wasn't following orders. He was following something else. Maybe it was a memory. Maybe it was her. The next morning, the city was still covered in fog and ash. Kane sat near the shelter's entrance, his eyes scanning every movement. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. His mind was full of noise. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the girl's face, Elira, and he heard the voice of his commander again, cold and sharp. Eliminate them all. No witnesses. But now he had become the witness, and a protector. Inside the shelter, Elira and the others were sleeping. The old man's breathing was slow but steady. One of the younger boys had burns on his leg. Kane had wrapped it last night with pieces of his own armor. It wasn't perfect, but it stopped the bleeding. His helmet was off now, his face pale, marked with old scars. He hadn't seen his own reflection in years. It felt strange, almost human. Suddenly, a soft sound made him turn. Elira had woken up. She walked toward him slowly, holding something in her hands. It was a small piece of fruit, blue and glowing faintly. She offered it to him. Kane looked at it, confused. She pushed it gently into his hand, then smiled and sat down beside him. He stared at the fruit for a moment, then took a bite. Sweet, cold, alive. It was the first real food he had tasted in months. Not a nutrition pack, not military paste, something natural, something real. Thank you, he said quietly. Elira didn't answer, but her smile grew. For a moment, the war outside felt far away. But it didn't last. A sharp sound echoed in the distance. Drones. Kane's face changed immediately. He stood up and activated his visor. 3 red blips were flying low, searching the area. Recon units. His team was hunting him now. He turned to Elira. We have to move. Now. She understood. She quickly woke the others. Kane helped carry the wounded boy. They left the shelter through a back tunnel and entered the lower streets. The city was falling apart. Rubble blocked many paths. Drones flew above, scanning every corner. Kane moved like a shadow, keeping them hidden under broken buildings and old tunnels. He remembered this map from the mission brief. Every street, every trap, every watchtower. Except now, he wasn't avoiding enemies. He was avoiding his own. After 2 hours, they reached an underground station, half destroyed but stable. It was quiet, no signals nearby. They rested again. Kane placed sensors around the area. He crouched near the edge, watching the fog. Elira walked up beside him. He looked at her and asked, "Why were you helping those people back there? You're just a child." She tilted her head, then pointed to her heart. "We take care of each other." Kane stayed silent. He didn't know how to answer. He had never belonged to something like that. His entire life was missions, orders, and death. He looked at her and asked quietly, "Why didn't you run when you saw me?" Elira paused, then pointed at his eyes. "Your eyes change," she whispered. Kane blinked. "What do you mean?" She made a small shape with her fingers, like a circle. First, red, then, soft. He didn't understand completely, but somehow, her words hit him deep. She had seen something in him, something even he hadn't seen. Suddenly, a sharp beep hit his ear. His helmet, still powered on, was picking up a message. A scrambled transmission, but part of it came through. Rogue asset. Unit 47. Kill order issued. Shoot on sight. Kane's hands tightened into fists. He was now officially marked as a traitor. They wouldn't try to bring him back. They would only try to end him. He looked at the civilians behind him, tired, weak, injured, and then at Elira. He couldn't run forever. They needed real safety, real help. There was only one place left. Sector 9. An old rebel base buried under the mountains. It was far, dangerous, and deep inside alien territory. His mission map said it was destroyed, but rumors said it had survivors. Maybe even the rebel leader he was sent to kill. He looked at Elira. "We're going to Sector 9. She nodded, trusting him without asking why. Kane didn't understand how she could trust a killer like him. But he knew this. He would not fail her. Not now. The journey to Sector 9 began before sunrise. Kane led the group through dark tunnels, keeping every step quiet. The old transport lines were broken and filled with dust. Once these tunnels carried machines and soldiers. Now, they only held silence and shadows. Elira stayed close to Kane. The others followed behind, scared but trusting him. They had no other choice. Kane knew this area well. It was part of his mission route. But now he walked it as a hunted man, not a hunter. Hours passed. Twice, they stopped to avoid drone patrols. Once, Kane had to cover everyone with rubble while a scanning beam passed overhead. Every second was dangerous. Still, they moved. But then, it happened. Just before reaching the old ventilation shaft that led to the mountain path, Kane heard a low mechanical sound. His eyes narrowed. It wasn't a drone. It was heavier. A mech. Kane rushed forward and looked through a crack in the wall. A massive black machine stood in the distance, 4 legs, 2 cannons, and a human pilot inside. It wasn't just hunting rebels. It was hunting him. They had sent a war walker after him. Kane turned to the group. "We split. Quietly. Move behind the second tunnel. I'll draw it away." Elira grabbed his hand. "No, it will kill you." He stared into her eyes. Her voice was small, but it shook his heart. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going to die." Then he took off running toward the left path. He didn't activate his weapons yet. He wanted to stay hidden. But the mech's sensors were sharp. After 30 meters, it turned its massive head and locked on him. Target located. Unit 47. Preparing elimination protocol. Kane jumped behind a broken metal wall as the first cannon blast hit the ground. The shockwave threw him forward, but he rolled and recovered. His shoulder hurt, but he kept moving. He climbed onto an old rail car and fired at the mech's right leg. The shot sparked, but didn't do real damage. The mech turned and fired again. Kane barely dodged it. Then, suddenly, the ground under him gave way. He fell into an old lower level, an abandoned water system. His body hit the ground hard, and his vision blurred. The mech moved above, scanning the area but unable to follow him down. For now, he was safe, but he couldn't go back that way. Kane stood up slowly, pain in his side, blood on his cheek. He took a breath and activated his inner map. There was another exit, but it was longer, more dangerous. He didn't care. He had to reach them again. Meanwhile, Elira and the group waited in silence. She stared at the smoke rising from the mech's path. Her hands shook, but her eyes stayed strong. "He's alive," she said quietly. The old man beside her asked, "How do you know?" She placed her hand on her chest. "Because I can feel him." Hours passed before Kane returned, limping, dirty, but alive. When the group saw him, they rushed to help. Elira was the first to reach him. She grabbed his hand and smiled through her tears. "You came back." Kane looked at her and nodded. "I said I would." They found a quiet place near the mountain's edge and rested for the night. Kane cleaned his wounds while Elira brought him water. The stars above looked cold and distant, but for the first time, Kane didn't feel alone under them. He looked at her and whispered, "Why do you care if I live or die?" Elira thought for a moment. "Because you care if we live or die." Kane didn't reply. He just looked at the stars, wondering what kind of person he was becoming, and what he would have to become to protect her from what was coming next. By morning, the cold mountain air had grown sharper. The sky was dark with storm clouds, and snow began to fall. Kane moved ahead of the group, scanning every corner. They were close now, just one last stretch before the pass into Sector 9. But danger followed them with every step. His visor picked up movement. Drones were circling again, wider and slower this time. They weren't searching randomly anymore. They were closing in. He looked back. Hilira was helping the old man walk over the rocks. The injured boy limped beside them, his face pale but brave. The others followed silently, all of them tired, hungry, scared. Kane's grip tightened on his rifle. He couldn't let anything happen to them. The narrow trail led them into a steep canyon. Tall cliffs on both sides. A perfect place for an ambush. Kane knew it, and he knew the military would know it too. They were walking into a trap. Suddenly, his comm picked up a signal. A voice came through the static. "Kane, this is command. Stand down. You are outnumbered." He froze. The voice was calm, familiar. "Turn yourself in, and we'll spare the civilians." Kane didn't respond. Another voice came in, colder. "Final warning. The next time you're spotted, we shoot to kill." Kane shut off the signal. His heartbeat was steady, but his mind raced. There was only one way through the canyon, and they would be waiting. He turned to the group. "You need to hide here, deep in the rocks. I'll draw them away." Hilira stepped forward quickly. "No, you can't do this alone." "I'm not asking for permission," he said, but his voice was softer than before. Hilira looked at him for a long moment, then reached up and touched the side of his face. "You're not a machine." He closed his eyes. For a second, he felt something he didn't recognize. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. Then he nodded and moved forward into the canyon alone. The snow was falling harder now, covering the blood on his armor. His footsteps were silent, his mind clear. He knew what he had to do. As he stepped deeper into the canyon, the trap triggered. Soldiers dropped from the cliffs, 6 of them, black armor, rifles raised. A gunship appeared above, lights flashing. Kane raised his hand slowly. "Target locked," the gunship AI said. "Unit 47, surrender." Kane smiled slightly. Then he moved. 1 second, he dropped to the ground. 2 seconds, he pulled a grenade from his belt and threw it into the air. 3 seconds, it exploded in a blinding flash, cutting the gunship's sensors. By the time the soldiers reacted, Kane was already behind them. His rifle barked 3 times. 2 went down. 1 tried to turn but caught a blade to the chest. The other shouted, "He's here. Contact. Contact." But Kane didn't stop. He moved like a ghost, vanishing behind the rocks, reappearing behind cover, taking down one after another. His body bled. His leg was hit, but he didn't stop, because he knew who was watching. From the cliff above, Hilira had followed him. Hidden behind rocks, she watched as Kane fought like a storm. He didn't see her, but she saw everything. She saw him take a bullet to the shoulder and still move forward. She saw him fall, then rise again. She saw him protect them, even when it meant killing the people who once called him brother. Finally, only one soldier was left, an officer with sharp eyes and a deep scar. He aimed at Kane's back. Hilira screamed. Kane turned too late. The shot fired, but it didn't hit him. The old man, Hilira's grandfather, had followed too. He stepped between them at the last second and took the bullet. Kane's eyes widened in shock as the old man fell into the snow. Rage filled him. He raised his rifle and fired. 1 clean shot. The officer dropped. Silence. Snow fell quietly. Kane ran to the old man, blood staining the ground. Hilira reached him at the same time, falling to her knees. The old man looked at her, weak but smiling. "You're safe," he whispered, then closed his eyes. Kane stood there, frozen. He had saved them, but not all. As the storm grew around them, Illyra cried quietly beside her grandfather's body. Cain looked at her, and for the first time, he felt broken. They buried the old man before sunrise. Snow covered the ground like a blanket. Cain stood beside Illyra as she placed her grandfather's pendant over the grave. Her eyes were red but dry now. No more tears, only silence. The others stood behind, heads low. Cain looked up at the cold sky. The storm had passed, but something else had begun inside him. He had killed soldiers before. He had killed rebels. But this time, something felt different. This death stayed with him. It wasn't just loss. It was guilt. Later that day, they finally reached the edge of Sector 9. Cain guided the group through a hidden path inside a broken power station. Behind rusted panels and old machines, a metal door waited, sealed with ancient tech. Cain placed his hand on the lock. A pulse of light scanned his fingers, and the door opened with a soft hiss. Illyra looked surprised. "How do you know this place?" Cain hesitated, then answered, "It was part of my mission. Before." She didn't ask more, but her eyes said enough. Inside the door was a tunnel, and at the end of it, light. They stepped into a huge underground base, not made by humans. Alien tech glowed along the walls. Strange machines hummed. Rebel soldiers turned their weapons toward the group, but then they saw Illyra, and the weapons lowered. One of them, a tall woman with silver skin and dark eyes, stepped forward. "Illyra, we thought you were dead." Illyra ran to her and hugged her. "We made it." The woman's eyes moved to Cain. "And he brought you." Illyra nodded. "He saved all of us." The woman stared at Cain. "He's a killer." "He was," Illyra said, "but he changed." The woman didn't answer, just turned and motioned for them to follow. Cain stayed close to Illyra as they moved deeper into the rebel base. Soldiers whispered when they saw him. Some looked afraid. Some looked angry. Cain didn't blame them. He had once been their enemy. He was the reason many of their friends were dead. They entered the command room. Walls filled with glowing maps, blinking signals, and old alien tech. In the center stood a tall figure with long dark robes and glowing eyes. The rebel commander. He turned when Cain entered. "So, this is the butcher who saved our future leader." Cain stayed silent. The commander walked slowly toward him. "You were made in a lab, trained without mercy, programmed to kill my people. And now you stand here, protecting the one you were ordered to destroy." Cain replied quietly, "I saw something real in her, something more than orders." The commander studied him for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "You're not the first weapon to go rogue, but you may be the most dangerous." Illyra stepped forward. "We can trust him." The commander turned to her. "You trust him because he saved you, but trust won't win a war." He walked to a glowing panel and tapped it. A large hologram filled the room. It showed a massive human warship moving toward the rebel base, silent and deadly. Hundreds of soldiers on board. Heavy weapons. Bombs. "They found us," the commander said. "We have less than 2 days before this monster arrives. If we stay, we die." Panic spread through the room. Whispers, fear, plans to evacuate. But Cain looked at the image calmly. "I know that ship," he said. "I trained on it. I know its weapons, its weak points." Everyone turned toward him. The commander raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight for us?" "I want to protect her," Cain said, pointing to Illyra. "But if this base falls, she dies. So yes, I'll fight." The commander looked at Illyra. She didn't speak, but she stepped beside Cain and held his hand. That was enough. The commander finally nodded. "Then you will lead the defense. Teach us what you know. Help us stop them." Cain didn't smile. He didn't feel joy. He felt something heavier. Purpose. As the rebel soldiers began preparing for war, Cain stood in front of them and started explaining the enemy, how they think, how they move, how to break them. He wasn't just protecting Elira now. He was turning against everything he once stood for. And he knew, when that ship arrived, he would have to kill his own kind. The rebel base was no longer quiet. Inside the tunnels, soldiers trained, weapons charged, and shields powered up. Kane moved through the halls like a shadow, setting traps, showing defense lines, preparing everyone for what was coming. He barely slept, barely spoke. His mind was sharp, focused only on one thing: survive the coming storm and protect Elira. She watched him from afar. He wasn't like anyone she had ever known. A weapon-turned human, a killer who now risked everything for those he once hunted. He didn't smile. He didn't show fear. But every time he looked at her, she saw it in his eyes. Something real, something broken, and healing. The countdown reached 0. The human warship entered Sector 9's sky like a black mountain with fire beneath. Giant engines screamed above. Drones poured out first, scanning the ground, then dropping soldiers by the hundreds. They didn't expect a fight. They thought they were hunting weak rebels. They were wrong. Kane had turned this base into a trap. As the first wave landed, explosions rocked the hills. Mines hidden under snow tore apart the front ranks. Rebel snipers fired from the cliffs. Shield walls blocked heavy weapons. The base lit up with energy blasts and flames. Kane was everywhere. He moved across the battlefield like a ghost. He took down soldiers with silent shots and sudden strikes. He used their training against them, flanked their movements, confused their leaders, and cut off their comms. Every second, he was risking his life. But he didn't stop, because she was watching. Elira stayed in the command room, helping the wounded, guiding the defenses, keeping the hope alive. Her voice on the radio gave strength to tired fighters. Her courage kept the base standing. Then came the final wave. The elite soldiers. Kane recognized them instantly. Black armor, red visors, trained like him, created like him. Unit 13. His old squad. They landed without sound, 12 shadows moving as one. Kane stood between them and the base. The leader stepped forward. Kane, step aside. Come home. There's no home for me, Kane said. Not anymore. You betrayed your mission. No. I found something stronger than orders. You've gone soft. I found something worth fighting for. The leader raised his weapon. Then you'll die with them. And the fight began. It was brutal, fast, silent. Kane fought his brothers like a wild animal. His arm was broken, his side bleeding. But he kept going. He used every trick, every scar, every memory of their training. One by one, they fell, until only the leader was left. They fought hand to hand, no weapons, just fists, blades, blood. The leader stabbed Kane in the stomach, but Kane didn't fall. He grabbed the blade, pushed it deeper to trap it, and used his last strength to strike once, straight through the armor. The leader collapsed. Kane fell to his knees. The battlefield went quiet. The warship pulled back, damaged, confused, retreating. The rebels had won. But Kane was bleeding badly. Elira ran to him through the snow, falling beside him. No, no, stay with me. He looked at her, his vision fading. Is everyone safe? He whispered. Yes, she cried. You did it. He smiled, just a little. Good. His hand fell. Then, nothing. Silence. Days later, the sun returned. The snow melted slowly over Sector 9. The rebels rebuilt. The people sang Kane's name like a hero, like a legend, a machine who found his soul. Elira stood at the edge of the valley, looking toward the hills. A soft wind passed, and behind her, a shadow moved. She turned sharply. There he was, alive, broken, scared, but alive. Kane. He nodded. She ran to him, And this time, he let himself hold her. He had no orders now. Only a choice, and he chose her. Forever.